If you would, please welcome Ms. Burke.
Thank you, Dr. Waddell, for your comments, and I'm thrilled to see such a great turnout for the beginning of this dialogue, this conversation. It's going to be, it's a good sign about what's going to happen at the end of this process by the fact that so many people are passionate about what's happening and what is going to happen in Louisville ISD schools. So I wanted to see who our audience is, if that's okay with y'all. How many of you, just raise your hand, if you have school-age children right now? School age, wow, fantastic. Can you all applaud these people that are here? Yay. I have two school-age children myself, a sophomore and a sixth grader, sophomore girl, Karina, and a sixth grade boy, Brandon. And I know that you have other things you could be doing right now, right? There's always things to be doing when you have kids, but there's really nothing more important than being a part of the conversation about how they're going to be spending not only every day while they're in school, but also how they're going to be prepared for their future. How many of you are here that are community members that do not have school-age children? Raise your hand if you're here. Wow. Thank you. Let's applaud those people that are here. Fantastic. What these people obviously know, and really we all know, is that it's a symbiotic relationship, right, between the school system and the community. And we have to work together because what one does influences the other and vice versa. So it's very important that, like Dr. Waddell was saying already, that this is a conversation that we're able to have together. I think we have, I'm pretty sure, because I saw two of them, board members in the audience, school board members. Do you mind standing up? Yes, thank you. Fantastic. And there's another one over there. Yes, thank you for being here. So we appreciate your service. My husband served on the school board, and the pay there is the same as the pay here. So we appreciate your service and what you're doing. Yes, Dr. Waddell. Stand up again. Stand up again. Yes, fantastic. And then I know that we have staff and administration, some folks here that are employees of the school district as well. And we appreciate your service. Can we give them a round of applause also? Thank you. So the idea of a group like this, and I applaud the courage of the leadership of the district to not go into a little room somewhere and say, let's make some decisions about the future. But instead to open up and say, we don't know who all will come. We don't really even know what they all think right now, but we want to hear that. And we want to have a process that involves input. And really, those are the only districts that I'll work with. I do have some superintendents, I won't name who they are, but they'll say to me, Shannon, we need a facilitator for a process. We want to get some community buy-in. That's what they'll say. And I say, okay, well, you need to find a different facilitator. Because to me, the idea of community buy-in means we already know what we're going to do. And we just want you guys to like it, right? That's not a process that I'm interested in being a part of. So there's a lot of that happens, honestly. But I only want to be a part of a process where the leadership says, we know we have challenges, right? We know we have challenges. We know the context has changed. And we know that the only way we can solve the challenges that we're facing is if we do it together. And we want to have input from the community. We want that to be the integral part of our process. And so there's many ways that you can be involved. This is the beginning. We're going to start a dialogue today. The purpose of today is to begin a dialogue together about what this future of education might look like and what that looks like right here in Louisville ISD. I appreciate Dr. Waddell's comments about taking back some local control. The way to do that is to be intentional about your thinking and being strategic about how you design what happens together here. And the districts that I'm able to work with that are doing that, they're able to do that even within the constraints, like he mentioned, of some of the federal and state mandates. But they're being intentional about the pieces that they're going to control and what they're going to decide at a local level. And that's why they're making the best decisions for their students in their district, because they know them the best. So you're going to have many opportunities to be a part of the process. This is the beginning, and it's going to be a dialogue. I know that if you signed in out there, you would see that it also said, do you want to be a part of this process continuing? So we're going to have focus groups that meet following on this process. We're going to have a survey that anyone and everyone can take online. And we're going to have, and that'll be tabulated online, and all the results of that. These will be broadcast for people to see and be a part of. That way, if they weren't able to actually be here in person, to be able to see the dialogue. And then we'll have a strategic design team that will meet, and then we'll have project teams that will meet following that. So we have several opportunities over the next few months to be a part of the process. And if you said over there, yep, I want to be a part of it, then you're going to get a phone call. So just be prepared, just because there are different roles and different opportunities for folks to be involved in the process along the way. So I appreciate you being here today. Here's our agenda for today. Most of it is going to be your input. Some of it is going to be me kind of orienting our conversation. And so, but we're going to start really with your input. So I'm going to explain how that's going to work. We're going to go through a process where I'm going to pose some questions to you, and I'm going to ask you to visit with the folks around you about it first. That helps to generate ideas. And then we're going to let you speak out to the whole group. We are videotaping these sessions, so I want you to know that up front. These will be also shared online in their entirety. So just want you to know, just full disclosure, we want to be very transparent about our process here, and so you need to know that up front. These ladies up here are exempt from any communications out loud if they don't want to, because they're in charge of my water, and they brought French fries earlier. So because they're the sustenance group, they do not have to, they wanted to be exempt from participating out loud, and you got it. So but really, we do want to hear from you then, and the way we're going to work that is kind of like talk show style. We have a couple folks that are going to use these microphones, and they're going to spread them out throughout the audience, and then you're going to be able to speak out and share with us. So the first question I'm going to ask you, as you see this boy going to school with high hopes about what he's going to be doing in school and how that's going to influence his life, is what are your hopes? Most of you in the audience, I saw the majority of hands when I said you have school-age children. We send our kids to school every day, and we hope to get something back, right? They spend 2 million minutes in high school alone. So what are your hopes? What are your highest hopes, actually? Let's do that. What are your highest hopes for school-age children? And kind of like, what do you hope will be the result of their time in school? So here's what we're going to do. You're going to spend about 3 minutes just discussing this with the folks near you so that we can generate some ideas and get that kind of, and then we're going to have a time where we're going to share out. We're going to have about 10 minutes to be able to share out and answer that question from the audience to the whole group. Okay? So 3 minutes with your small group answering this question.
Test, test, test.
I've got another one. I'll stand. You want me to do the third one? Let me stand over here. Yeah, it might be nice. Actually, he said he had 4, right? Did you say you had 4 mics? Can we grab the other one? Linda? Yeah, I was going to grab Kristen and have her go, okay, like make her way to the back corner. And I'll go here. And then Karen and I will work from the middle. Okay. Kristen, can you help us? Yeah. Can you crowd mic from like the back corner? Tristan's going to take that back corner, and then Karen and I will work from the middle. That way we can kind of reach people here. Thank you.
Test, 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 test. Test, test.
I want to just clarify the question again before we hear from the whole group. I don't know if you saw on the agenda, but we're going to address a couple things later in the time that we're together. We're going to address like things that need to change in school to make this happen. We're going to address like what learning needs to look like, what teaching needs to look like, what the system needs to do different. Those things are going to come a little later. I'm trying to separate us. So this first one, right, is about what are your highest hopes for students as a result. Like, it's after the time of school, right? They're post-graduation kind of thing. What are your highest hopes as a result of their time being in school? So I just wanted to reorient you for just a quick minute. So you still have one more minute in your small group, all right? Just want to make sure you're on track. One more minute in your small group. So we want to hear as a whole group. We have 4 mics, one in each back corner and then 2 up here. So all I need you to do is just, if you're going to share out to the whole group from what you talked about, if you'll just stand up in your space where you are right there, just so we can see where you are. If you'll stand up, perfect. Then we'll just start. You can go right there and hand her a mic next to you, and then we'll just go in order. Go right ahead.
Okay.
Thank you.
We're hoping that we create global citizens that are able to meet and exceed any challenge that the 21st century can throw at them.
Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you.
We have a list. So we would like to see them as responsible, patriotic citizens, have a good character, sense of community, quality education, leaders and innovators, well-rounded, good communicators, accepts challenges, see failure as a challenge and an education growth opportunity, to accept opinions of others, and to see the value of an education.
Fantastic. Just high expectations. We like it. That's great. That's great.
Okay, we have a list too. We put down skills to make a difference in the world, and with that we put critical thinking, problem solving, creative abilities, and then social and manners, and being set up for being successful and successful experiences.
That's great. Thank you.
Very well spoken. Ours was more brief. We said that our ultimate goal was for our students to be productive members of the workforce and live independently.
Stand up.
It sounds like some of you might have kids that have already graduated from school.
Well, as a parent of Louisville School District with a daughter that graduated from Louisville School District, and I'm very pleased to say that, what I wanted for Rahana was for Rahana to be the best that she could be, and having said that, that umbrella is whatever profession she decided to pursue, and then we have part 2, and this is Margaret Simmons.
Okay. Oh, great.
I'm a retired teacher from the Louisville School District also. In addition to that, we want them to apply the knowledge that they have learned and make sure that they are collaborators, that they can apply critical thinking, that they are problem solvers, that they can exhibit creative expressions, that they had effective writing and oral communication, and that they are project managers.
Fantastic. Some of the things that you have to do in your jobs, right? Great. Yes, sir.
Anyway, our three-person committee here, we wrote down what we thought, and we wanted every door or opportunity to still be open when he or she graduates with the right education. And of course, the difficult part of that is how do you accomplish that? And
sure. Sure. That's the rest of the process. So that's right. Great. So every door to still be open. No barriers. Yes. Oh, great.
We are some parents here, and we discussed that we are expecting our students to be well-rounded and with multitude of experiences. And probably we also listed some of the things that everybody has discussed so far. But I would like to add in that the most important thing is I don't think we can predict what our kids are going to need when they go to work. So the most important thing they will need to have is the confidence. The confidence to be able to take the challenge, to take see the challenge, see the problem, and solve it.
That's great.
So basically the ability to learn is what they need to learn.
There you go. Yeah, that's great. Thank you. Fantastic. Who has the mic? Oh, go ahead.
Hi. We had a discussion here that there's been a huge emphasis on college prep, which isn't necessarily a bad thing, but we would like it to be recognized that not all kids are going to follow that path, nor is it appropriate for all kids. So we would like kids, and I'm speaking for my two kids here as well, who I have one that probably will take that path and one that's likely not going to take that path. And I would like both of them prepared, both for life, career, or college.
Fantastic. Thank you. How many of you have more than one school-aged child? How many of you, those children are exactly the same? No one? What? No one? Yeah. So exactly, there are different options. That's fantastic. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I would like social studies to take a bigger part in the curriculum, be more important so that children are learning to care for one another and have more of a global perspective. And I think it would be wonderful if they could be fairly fluent in one foreign language by the time they graduate from high school.
So your hopes are that they will be global citizens, they'll have that awareness and care as a result. Right. Fantastic. Fantastic. Thank you. Yes?
Hi. I've noticed our education system is really top-heavy. The languages I would hope would be taught at a lower level, like elementary and middle school. It's hard to pick up second languages or third languages in high school. Other countries, they're doing 2 or 3 languages in elementary school. Why can't we do that? I mean, it's too late to learn a second language in high school. I mean, you don't really pick up so that's one thing. And trying to bring the enrichment down to elementary school level and the middle school level. High school, so much stuff going on, till midnight. They're working like 18 hours a day. But if that can be brought to the middle school, elementary school level, and spread it out, instead of making it so top-heavy. It's very top-heavy.
Okay, so those are things that you would do. What are your hopes for students as a result of those things? What are you hoping for?
Well, with that, they would have more for a global citizen or the multiple languages, right? Okay. Because if they don't pick up a language in elementary school or middle school, it's going to be really hard to pick up a language in high school. So. And we're living in a global world, multiple languages, it shouldn't be that difficult, And kids at elementary school, they just pick up languages just like that, I've seen that with one of my daughters, so it shouldn't be that hard. And it shouldn't take that much, maybe we can cut back on some other administrative budget, something unnecessary,
So we'll get to that. We'll get to the point of what do you do. But I'm hearing the hope is that students, when they're leaving school, or actually even while they're still in school, that they would have the ability to understand the global surroundings and interact with that due to the fact that they're able to speak different languages, etc. So that's your hopes for them. Fantastic.
And also make it less that top-heavy. So much enrichment at high school level in the last grade of middle school. I didn't see that in elementary school.
Right. So hoping that they can be enriched all along the way.
Yeah. Even the other states, one more thing, even the other states in the U.S., like they have banned, if I remember, one state had banned in elementary school, so it should be possible. So, thank you. Okay.
Anyone else? Anything different that you didn't hear? Right, yes.
I think what we discussed was what a lot of other people discussed, but I wanted to add, it'd be great if they left with a tool belt that had them equipped to handle whatever they want to do. I think, I don't really see much of any entrepreneurship discussed in school, so I think a tool belt that might allow them to take that avenue if that's what they want. And then I think there's, being a global citizen is great, but I'd love for my kids to leave knowing that they are American citizens and have some patriotism kind of reinforced as well. So that would be one of my hopes for education.
Fantastic. So we want them to be a local citizen as well as a global citizen. Great. Okay, fantastic. So, by the way, also just another point of process. I have a person with me here, and she's transcribing, and then we're going to take the videos and transcribe. So everything that we're hearing and we're saying out, again, besides being able to just view the videos, we'll have those things in writing for you as well. And over the, we're going to have 6 summits this week. So over the course of the time, we'll have all of that information compiled so that you can see the hopes together, for instance, right, across the 6 summits. So thank you so much for your input. This group is obviously accelerated. I love it because we are really thinking along the same lines. The reason that we start with this, the reason we start the conversation about where you hope to be, is sometimes we think we already know the answers. But if we're not real clear on where we're trying to go, like Stephen Covey says, you need to begin with the end in mind, where you're trying to get to, and then you understand how to order the steps to get to that point. Or like Yogi Berra said, like a little bit easier, like if you don't know where you're going, you're probably going to end up someplace else. And I think really this one reason why it's important to start this conversation now is because we haven't had, like Dr. Waddell said, we really haven't had a conversation about this, and not just in Louisville, but I'm speaking more from a nationwide perspective. We haven't had, we hear a lot of rhetoric, but we really haven't had a conversation about what is our purpose, and that's really what we're trying to get at. And the other reason why it's important to do what you're doing here in your district is because normal operations in a school district, and the gentleman alluded a little to this, everybody in a school district, for the most part, I've found, has really good intentions about what they're trying to do for students. It's why they're there. It's why they chose that profession. But without direction, then what can happen is we have a lot of random acts of good intentions, but sometimes we feel like we're almost working at cross purposes against ourselves. So we put this program in and we put this program in, and maybe they're in conflict, or maybe they both look good and they both would work, but maybe not together. But so we have all, and you have to keep working harder and harder and harder to try to make the same thing happen over time, because you have all these things that we're trying to do. And like I say, it's usually good intentions, but what can happen when you have a really clear, just crystal clear clarity around your crystal clear clarity, is like saying something double, but when you have this mission and vision defined for you, then you can focus those resources that are so precious. Time being one of the main ones is very precious. And then obviously our fiscal resources, especially in our current state, but really at any time, taxpayers' dollars that are going towards, and then your human resources. You can focus those things. And so it's real helpful for that. So besides knowing the end, it's this idea of the hopes that you have for students. That idea is what we want to drive the entire process. So we're gathering that input now. We're going to continue to bring all that in, and then we're going to share that with the strategic design team, and that piece is going to be like, here's where we're headed, okay, that purpose. Now, the interesting thing is, and I want to share with you just a few minutes, I want you to understand that there's no one here, not me, not the leadership, no one here is saying, like, you're doing bad things in Louisville, so you have to redefine everything. We're not even saying, and I purposefully, I know all the data and all the things that people say about, look at American education versus, over the world, we're doing terrible. And you can look at the statistics and the data on that. But the main idea here is that there's a difference between the current context and the context in which our education system was conceived. So actually, the education system we have has worked really well for its purpose when it was conceived. So I want to just give you I want you to think for just a minute about the purpose of education today, some of the things you just said that students need. The purpose of education, has it changed in the last 50 years? Has it changed in the last 100 years? Has it changed in the last 150 years, which is about the amount of time that we've had? And I want you to think about, this is some artwork from the late 1800s, which is really the first time we kind of had formal education, Okay, and I want you to think about lifestyle and work environment from that time, right? As you see these images. So you see small groups of people interacting, working together and collaborating to do their work, kind of a variety of tasks. This is play, kind of imitating that. And then here's a classroom. So do you see how the classroom, we're going to call this Education 1.0, see how the classroom kind of imitates the lifestyle and the work that these people are doing at the time, okay? Imitates and prepares for. Then, what's this time? Industrial Revolution. And this is when we first decided to, well, this is the kind of workplace environment during the Industrial Revolution, very different from what we just saw during the late 1800s. But in the 1900s, you see this kind of workplace environment that's happening, and, of course, school. This is when we first mass-produced school, right? And it fit that efficiency model, okay? So, isn't this cute? Health is better than wealth. Stand erect, right? It's good stuff. Yeah. Eat fruit. Drink water. So this, you see some of the curriculum, right? As well as the classroom environment here. So we're going to call this Education 2.0, right? Okay, so this is kind of really the second generation of the education system in America for the most part. And this was actually a conception by William Wirt. He came up with the idea in 1908 of what he called the platoon school and improved school machine. It's like industrial age schools, like a one-size-fits-all model where you could really get all those kids through it, right? And really, in a way, the purpose of this was almost kind of a sorting process too, right? So, like I asked you earlier, how many of you have more than one child and how many of you they're exactly the same? We really are now in a one-size-fits-all model, right? So Education 1.0, when the people that were coming out of school needed to engage in these types of activities, agriculture, artisanry, kind of economy, cooperative small group work. It's an apprentice model, right? You learn from other people that have done it, okay, multi-generational, okay, kind of situation, variety of tasks, hand tools, things that they can use that way. And then 2.0 is more of it's manufacturing, processing, solitary work, but in a group setting, okay? So if you're trying to get people to do solitary work in a group setting, you have to have a manager model, right? You've got to keep people on task, doing the same thing at the same time according to a bell with no distractions. And repetitive types of things mostly, okay? So now we have Workplace 3.0, right? It's not the only purpose for school, but like someone said, if you want them to live independently, it needs to be at least one of the purposes, right? So this is Workplace 3.0, and it looks a little bit different, right? What kinds of things, what kinds of skills, some of you have already mentioned some of them. You've got kind of high technology use, right? Kind of specialized. There's an assembly line, by the way, but the work around it is different. Why? Sure, you've got technology doing most of that repetitive task work, and this is like quality control, problem solving, right, that the people have to do. And then the other thing you see is a variety of tasks, again, even in the same environment. Okay, so the work environment has, you can see here, the work environment has like different, and these are all like kind of like candid photos. These are not posed photos of this particular place. The one back there where you saw them all smiling, that was obviously posed. But they're doing a variety of tasks in the same space, and so the environment itself is conducive to that. Okay, so this kind of workplace environment, but still this kind of classroom environment, right? Right? Now, like we said, what we were doing in Education 2.0 was not wrong. It worked really well. In fact, every industrializing nation right now that's starting or in the middle of their industrial revolution is imitating that system. They're imitating that system that we mass produce really very, very effectively. Very effectively. Made us a great economy, right? So, but now we still have these classrooms which obviously are not a great match for what we're seeing about the workplace. And some of you started to think about this earlier, but I want you to real quickly think about those school-age kids and just with your neighbor there real fast, brainstorm a list of technology these kids have available to them that you did not have at their age. Everything. smell. So this could be a long list, right? This could be a really long list. But all I want you to do, we're not even going to share with the mics. You can just throw out some things real quick. Just say whatever. Say it. Smartphones. Okay, how many of you have a phone that's not just a phone? Right? Holding them up. Yeah. Yeah, I've also heard it can be used at concerts like a lighter. But there's lots of other ways that phone is used. What is it used for? Internet, texting, phone calls. Actually, still is used for phone calls sometimes, depending on your age. GPS. It's the way you get, it's a map. It's a camera. Calendar. Video. Taking polls, survey. There's some people, my daughter plays volleyball, and they use it to, score the volleyball game. What's going on? Video games to play, entertainment. Music, right? Social networking, constantly there. You know what everybody's doing all the time, even though you don't care. No, I'm just joking. That's technology, baby. Yes. So the reason why the context of the workplace has changed, right, is because of what we're talking about right now, right? And my daughter had to do, when she was like 5 or 6, actually when we still lived here in the Dallas area, she had to do a project where she had to interview an elder about the way that their life has changed, So she was going to interview my dad, and he told me whenever she was going to interview him through email, but when he told me, she's like 6, but when he told me, he was talking to me about it prior to, and he said, I'm going to really freak her out. He goes, I'm going to tell her that we had an outhouse. We didn't have indoor plumbing. That's one way I usually can gauge my audience, like if somebody says, electricity, then I go, oh, yeah. But anyway, he's like, I'm going to tell her that we didn't have indoor plumbing, and I'm like, oh, Dad, which he did, but anyway. So then she gets off the phone. She comes to me, or gets off the email. She gets her email. She comes to me, and she goes, Mom, you are not going to believe what Doodad said about his, that's what she called him, Doodad, handyman. But anyway, what he said about his, what he didn't have. And I was like, what? I'm knowing. She goes, he didn't have a computer. So for her, right, the whole thing was, who cares about the outhouse thing? She's like, whatever. But he didn't have a computer? She couldn't believe it. And I was like, yeah, neither did I. I was trying to tell her. She's like, what? Like, she didn't get it, right? So that's the thing, is technology has changed our world. And technology's always changed the world, right? But it is rapid, like someone has come up with this term, replexity. It's made this rapid complexity happening. And it's gotten more portable, right? This looks like a set of pins. It's actually a computing system called Spot Technology where it can project the keyboard and the screen. So it's more portable now, and y'all mentioned the smartphones, obviously, already. What does a cell phone and a Chia Pet have in common? Y'all remember Chia Pets? Oh, she can sing the song. Well, this particular cell phone, if you plant it, it turns into a sunflower. When you're done with it, you just plant it, it turns into a sunflower. Because one of the things that's happening, obviously, as a result of all this rapidly changing technology is we got a lot of it left over all the time that we don't know what to do with. So there's a piece of technology that addresses the issue of consuming technology. It's also good, so it's getting smart, it's getting more portable, it's getting smarter, it's getting smaller. This is nanotech. I don't know if you can see this. These are red blood cells, and those little purple things are created to help with oxygen, to be able to breathe, to hold your breath longer is the way this works. And it's used for a variety of things. But this is nanotech, so it's these little things, little cells that are inserted that are the same size as your red blood cells. There's a lot more where that came from. My kids understand nanotech better than I do, which is crazy. I was doing a project with a nanotechnology lab in New York, and I was working through it, and I was saying at the dinner table, like, we're working on this nanotech lab and all this, and I expect them to go, what's that? And my son goes, oh, yeah. He's like 7 at the time. I read about that in National Geographic Kids. This is what it's going to do. And he's like, tell me all this stuff. And I'm like, okay, thank you. Do you want to go do the project? Because you know more about it than me. So we also obviously have technology that's it is widespread. Okay, it's not just here. We're trying to solve problems in different places in the world utilizing technology. One of the problems that we're trying to solve is the idea that we now have 7 billion people inhabiting a planet that only a very short time ago was inhabited by 1 billion. And so that 7 billion are taxing the resources, including we hear a lot about this right now, especially in the current climate conditions. But this is these things are called a life straw, and it actually purifies the water as you drink through it. So this idea of trying to come up with some technology that can address the issue of the fact that the water is the new oil. Not enough people have good drinking water. So the impact of all these different types of technology has created some of the stories I'm telling you, and I know how many of you have your children tell you how to use your devices. Raise your hand if you've done that, right? So they're digital natives. They get it. They just get it. They don't use the manual, right? They're like, what are you using that thing for? And it's like, oh, okay. So they just do the thing, right, and tell you what to do. So they're digital natives. It is a difference in the way they think. As a result, actually, there's brain research that shows the brain is like wired differently as a result. Population explosion that I mentioned, obviously a result also of technology because the biotech is extending lifespan. It's helping more people have better quality of life, et cetera, which is a great thing. But it's also, because of that, impacting our environmental resources, the world that we live in ways that our kids are going to have to figure out how to solve, and we need to too. Many of you mentioned already the global village. It's flattening the world like we've read. So there's that kind of impact. And it's creating this volatile economy, because of the interdependence that's happening between countries as a result of the global village, et cetera. So what we do impacts a lot of other people, and what other people do impacts us. So therefore, it's impacting the world of work. How many of you, where do you work? Everywhere, anywhere, right? Anywhere where you have this, right? So, and when do you work? Yeah, all the time. Anytime you have that, right? So the work world is changing because work can be done anywhere by anybody. We heard about entrepreneurship back there. Really smart thing to be thinking about, because we know that the prediction is that 80% of our current third graders will be entrepreneurs. Is that a scary thought or what? You know what it takes to be an entrepreneur, right? The kind of skills that it takes to do that. Also, somebody else mentioned, I love what we heard back there about having confidence, because we don't know what their life is going to be about or how it's going to be, and that's so true. We know now, even. In 2001, they put out a report that the average 34-year-old has changed companies 9 times. Part of that is because careers are being formed, careers are disappearing, full career fields, because of the advent of technology and the way it's changing everything so rapidly. So we can't just say, oh, we're going to prepare them to be this. They also have to prepare to learn something new that we may not even know that exists right now. We know that for the kids. In fact, how many of you talked about music and how it's changed over time? Right? Remember 8 tracks? Right? You know, our kids think CDs are that old-fashioned thing, right? They're like, my kids saw a record one time. They're like, what are those big CDs? I'm like, yeah. So what's it going to be? Let's say 10 years from now. How will music work? Be stored? Who knows, right? Who knows? Who knows? That's the thing. We see the changes that have happened in the past, but we can't predict what's going to happen with just that one thing. And many other things fall in the same category. So, but it has created this flat world. Work can go anywhere in the world, to any worker in the world. And also because of the population explosion, we also know that people are saying, I don't like to hear it because I have kids of this generation, that people are wondering, is this the first generation that will have a reduced quality of life? Because work can go anywhere. That means the competition is greater. That means that wherever the people are that can do the work, that's where the work's going to go. And we know that, for instance, India has if their preschool children were a country, it'd be the 4th largest country in the world. By the way, if the people on Facebook were a country, I think it's the 3rd largest country in the world, right? So it's changed. It's changed the way the world of work works. And we do not want to set up our kids for failure. We want them to have opportunities. Everybody in here has already said that today. I know. We want them to have a fair shake at this thing. H.G. Wells says civilization is the race between education and catastrophe. And it's important in the times that we're describing and the times that we're living in. It's not about preparing them really for the future. It's for the present. We have challenges right now that we need their brain power to help us solve. And they are capable. They're capable of doing that. So we want to make sure that we're not trying to prepare the minds of the future. A lot of people talk about that. I don't know if you saw those books on there. If any of you read Dan Pink or Howard Gardner, when they talk about these future minds, what people need to have in this world in this perplexity that we're living in, to work in this world. But we want to make sure that we're not trying to use the methods of our past to prepare them for that, right? So some of you already made a list of this, what skills students need, but I want to give you 2 minutes to talk with your neighbor about this. In the world that we're talking about, in this world that we're describing, that you all obviously live in now, so you know, what are the skills they need? What are the skills they need? That's the first question. Let's take a minute and a half in your small group. Make a list if you can. What are the skills they need in this context? Real quick, the skills. We're going to get into this more detail, but real quick, what skills do they need in this context? And you can just share it out real quick. Problem solving. To be able to work as a team and collaborate. Communication skills. Being innovative. Innovation. Some of these things we don't know how to solve them. We need innovative minds on it. Confidence. Yes. Social and emotional skills. It's not enough just to have the knowledge. Research, the ability to research and find out those new things. And they have the devices to do it, right? Yes. The ability to teach themselves using all these other things that we've talked about. Great, yes. Fantastic. And that's what we're hoping to do in this process, by the way. Thank you. I showed you Education 1.0 and 2.0. Can't we learn from those things to build Education 3.0? It's not like, oh, that was bad stuff. Right? We want to build on that and say what's appropriate now and how do we build on that to go forward. Yes. Survival skills. Yes. Okay, being able to collaborate and communicate. How to filter. Lots of stimuli coming at them. How to filter those things and check boxes. Ethics in this time. So you get the idea. I know you know, really that list right there is a pretty good, strong list. And we could probably hone it. But here's what I want you to think about. If they need those skills, if we agree that they need those skills in general, in what ways does learning need to be transformed to make that happen? What do they need to be doing in school every day to have those skills? What do they need to be doing? So I want you 3 minutes in your small group, and we're going to share this stuff out with the microphone. So 3 minutes, how does learning need to be transformed? What do they need to be doing? checked your time, didn't you? No, we're on time. Thank you. Fantastic. So we're going to use the same method as we did before, and that is if you want to share out what your group came up with, if you'll stand up. The other thing I'd ask you to do, though, is let's listen and not repeat, right? Because we're probably going to have more people that want to share this time. So let's just make sure if someone shares something that that was what I was going to share, you can just sit down and you'll get to share on the next one. Or if you had something different, share that. That's great. Okay? Work? So go for it. Who would like to share? In what ways should learning be transformed? Yes, ma'am. Go ahead. She'll bring you a mic so we can hear.
We were talking about how all the skills that everybody had mentioned, most of them can be learned in small groups. I have a 5th grader that is going through rotations. She's learning how to go from each subject to a different classroom. But one of her teachers, the principal of our school, and this particular teacher have gotten together, and her classroom in that room no longer has desks. They have tables. And my daughter was joking with me. She's like, I get to be a kindergartner again, Mom. We're going to centers. And so, but each table is a different subject that this teacher is responsible for teaching, but they're in the tables in small groups. She is loving it.
That's great. That's great. So one of the things I'm hearing is if they're going to learn how to work in small groups, they need to be in small groups. Learn. It sounds like take notes on how to work in small groups, right? So somebody else? Yeah, go for it.
Yes, hello. I don't assume to know all the answers, but just discussing, this has been very educational for me. I guess I see teachers being more like you, facilitating discussion and training and teaching the students how to research. I think research is going to be a key thing for them to learn how to do.
Fantastic. Thank you. Yes.
Our first point was related to the first group. The second point was blended learning. So we have different subjects for English, math, music, etc., but it's very compartmentalized. So I would like to see some sort of leak over between the different subjects. That way kids learn in the way we all do real jobs. We don't just write. We write technical writing, or we write with other people. So we do many different subjects at the same time.
That's great. Why did we compartmentalize the subjects, by the way? Just, anybody know? Okay, testing is one reason, and efficiency. The model that we saw, it was more efficient to go, certify in this area, put people, right? Okay. So what he's saying is, in the real world, we're not compartmentalized like that. We have it all working together. So I like that leak over term that he used. And somebody earlier said they want students, their hope is that they'll apply the things that they're learning. So what he's saying about real world, those things kind of go together. Yes?
I have something to say about the game dynamics. If you look at how many hours and how much interest kids have to play, they want to play the games.
Video games.
And if you look at how interested they are in schooling or when the teacher teaches, that tells you something. So
the difference, the contrast between those.
And probably with some statistics, probably they spend same hours in school and playing video games by the time they graduate out of the high school. So I would like to say that if you can change the education process, like when you teach something, instead of you starting a topic, present something, and then let them find out what is the challenge, what is the problem, and then help them out with figuring it out how they learn. And if you instruct while doing that, probably they will be more attentive. And there are some more game dynamics that you can like progression and all other things to make it more interesting.
Absolutely. So it's hard to be as entertaining as a video game, right? So she's suggesting, and similar to what this lady was saying about research, starting with that piece and having them investigate and facilitate that. Fantastic. Thank you. Yes.
Hi. There was a lady in our group, and she pointed out that children learn in different ways. Some are visual learners, some are hands-on. And then when you're talking about small groups, it would be a really good idea to group these kids by their learning styles, and they would become more proficient quicker.
Okay, so opening up the variety, and like we saw in the one-size-fits-all model, it was intended to sort, actually. But what you're saying is if we're trying to educate all students, that we have to take into account the different styles they have and then create experiences that utilize those. Fantastic. Yes, ma'am.
It's been already kind of pointed out, but I just wanted to specify. It seems like my kids are always saying, so worried about, it was tax before, now I believe it's going to be STAR. But they're so worried about it, so worked up, and the teachers are so stressing the test. They memorize, they pass the test, and then move on. They don't really learn anything. So don't teach for the test. Teach to learn.
Okay. Yeah. Great. Fantastic. So I saw some teachers applauding, so I think they would appreciate that opportunity as well. Yes.
One of the things we discussed was the time frame in which kids learn. The school schedule was originally set up in your Education 1.0 around the harvest schedule. Yeah. I don't believe anybody in this room is harvesting anything.
Hey, sometimes I ask that question, like, anybody harvest? And I'll get one or two, right?
Yeah, so your time frame in which school is done and the time in which students are expected to learn were based around a harvest schedule of Education 1.0. The other thing with the time frame which they learn is dealing with your newer generations coming in, your younger generations, your Gen X, your Gen Y, and those to follow. Learn at different times, learn different ways, whether it be year-round school, whether it be longer day, however that might work.
Fantastic. So addressing the calendar, when they're learning, as well as how they're learning. Fantastic. And you're exactly right. And even the amount of time in a segmented, what's called the Carnegie unit, that we use for a schedule right now, that was during the efficiency model later, but it wasn't really designed around how they learn. So looking at all those pieces. Yes?
We have to transform learning and understand that great teachers and excellent teachers back in the days, I guess my time too, was great at the time, but now that has to change.
That's good. Thank you.
In conjunction to that, I'm just speaking as a retired principal. All of these things that we're sharing are great, but as a principal driving a school, a team, I don't want us to lose sight, and I hope that we haven't really discussed that, but it's just something on my heart. The teacher is the driving force in the classroom for your children. They're acting in loco parentis when you're not there. And I think we don't want to lose sight to know that we want the students to have all these fantastic things, but we want the teacher to have excellent morale, jump out of bed and say, oh, I'm going to work today, and have someone there supported, have the materials that they need.
Sure.
And so
that's our next question, actually. So once we get a feel for, okay, what does the learning need to look like, which is this question, what does the learning need to look like? What are they doing? Then we talk about that role of the teacher and how that works together. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
We talked about how students are first graders, second grade, third grader, fourth graders, and not students learn at different rates. Why do they have to stay boxed in as a first grader or second grader? As they learn, they should be able to progress. As long as you maintain still that emotional and social interaction, they should be able to progress at the rate they can progress.
Thank you. And that relates a little to what, go ahead, sure. The gentleman that mentioned the calendar and the time of day, and then also you're saying grouping them by age. Anyone seen, Ken Robinson has a ton of great video on YouTube that one of his RSA animates. He talks about, we originally did that, obviously for efficiency again, but that we pretend like the most important thing that kids have in common is their age, right? And that's not true. We all know that. So how can we look at them learning at a pace that makes sense individually? Yes, sir.
So what skills? Money management. I think a lot of kids graduate and they don't know anything about a checkbook or how to balance a checkbook. I think what goes along with that is maybe some different motivations. Not every kid cares about an A, but if you might, work in some different types of rewards and consequences, I think that might help.
Mm-hmm. Okay. So also looking at grading and assessment and how that works. Yes, ma'am.
One of the things we spoke about was problem solving and task-based learning, because you might have a group, but perhaps one kid is a leader, another one will learn from that leader, or perhaps one is a creative thinker and the leader will learn from the creative thinker. So it's just, I think project-based team thinking is really the key thing that we keep saying.
It sounds like that, yeah. It sounds like that pattern of how they're working together to collaborate and learn their different roles, and then the research pieces, and task-based, she's saying. Fantastic. Go. Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Sure.
Hi. In addressing the audiovisual kinesthetic, yes, we have those three methods, but I would almost guarantee that we're all kinesthetic learners, but yet we're forced to sit in a chair and not be able to actively learn, which is how we learn as from infancy up. We learn by being active. whether it's working on projects or standing up, moving around, saying things out loud. And I'd really like to see more of that opportunity where it's an active learning environment. So we learn by doing, not just hearing or seeing.
So when you're walking in these schools that you're talking about, you're seeing active learning happening, seeing kids moving, and fantastic. Very good. Yes?
I just want to kind of piggyback on that idea. We're also keeping these kids in the classroom all day, where they could be outside in the community getting some authentic learning with the kind of entrepreneurship that's up there, and I think that we need to have those opportunities.
Okay, so fantastic. So along those lines, active, but also not just saying it's this space. It's not just this space. It's not just this time. Okay, fantastic. Yes?
I think we need to teach our kids to be social. Instead of sitting and being quiet, we need to teach them it's okay to talk. It's okay to speak out rather than only speak when spoken to.
Because they need those skills. Fantastic. We heard earlier about communication skills. So again, saying that needs to happen in the classroom if they're going to learn how to do it outside the classroom. Very good. Yes, ma'am.
I think that everyone needs to recognize the diversity of individual people, and a lot of times that gets squelched in the school situation.
Sure.
Where, like someone was just saying, we could learn from each other. Well, maybe that really odd person might have a very interesting thing to teach everyone.
Fantastic. Absolutely. We know there's a lot of brain power bottled up in those schools, and like you say, bringing that out, the diversity out, and letting them talk to each other. Fantastic. Might learn from each other. Yes, ma'am.
We just had a thought about bringing the community in those authentic out-of-classroom experiences. We're in Dallas-Fort Worth, and we have the majority of these huge multi-million-dollar corporations. We have Frito-Lay, ExxonMobil. Maybe we could bring some of those companies in and help us get those experiences for our children.
Any business leaders in the room that agree with that? So any business leaders in the room? Perry? Okay. I bet he will agree with that. Fantastic. Fantastic. Okay, well, you started to allude to this anyway, but I do want to also formally address it. So if this is the kind of learning, just to recap what we said, we talked about active learning, connecting to the community, utilizing their tools and their research, and working in collaborative groups and solving problems that are real problems where the subjects are integrated across those problems, not being confined by their date of birth and the current school calendar necessarily, which, by the way, I think we still get up for the summer for tourism now. It's not harvest anymore. but still, but looking at the calendar with fresh eyes, all of those kind of things, and saying time isn't a constraint the way we have it set up. The space isn't a constraint. I'm trying to remember, I think making sure they're communicating with each other socially, and that the diverse kinds of knowledge that's in the room is acknowledged through the process. So if all of those things are happening, what is the role of the teacher? Some people have said that, the teacher could be, there was a time when there was a big discussion about the teacher being replaced by technology, right? And one of the things I like to just throw out there when this discussion comes up is things that can be automated can be replaced by technology, right? Things that can be automated are being replaced by technology. So what is the role of the teacher that's not automated, right? If we remain in a role that can be automated, it will be. But what is the role of the teacher in the context we're talking about, in the learning environment that you all just described? What does that role look like? So 2 minutes in your small group, and then we'll share out. Okay, same process as the last one, and that's just you're going to share. And obviously, if somebody said it before, then we don't necessarily need to repeat it. If you want to add something on to, that's fantastic. So who wants to share what you talked about? Role of the teacher. There's right there.
We discussed that our teachers need to model exactly what we want our children to be. So they need to be an encourager. They need to be passionate about learning. They need to be flexible and given flexibility to implement new things, to be innovative, to be savvy, to be technologically abreast, and for the teachers to have advancement opportunity, similar to what people in the business world have.
Okay, great. So modeling the same skills. Okay. Very good. Fantastic. Yes?
Sorry. I was still noting. One thing I'd like to really point out is one, we'd like our teachers to be mentors and facilitators, not dictators of a subject. And two, we'd really like to see our students and our teachers, well, our teachers particularly, have the freedom to be able to explore the arts, the creative arts, the linguistic arts, to be able to use those as tools for learning. So let's say something in the environment we see as needing a change. Well, let's write a song about it. Let's write a poem about it. And then we're learning about language arts at the same time instead of write a poem. Right. And so, yeah, I'd really like to see more of the arts involved.
Okay. So creativity in the arts and modeling the skills, fantastic. So far, not things that would be automated. Okay.
At first, we said crowd control, and then we figured we should think. But we agree with the facilitator, blended learning, the different types of learning, empowering children to have their voice spoken, et cetera, like that. I think what a lot of teachers get into, they get bogged down into teaching just the curriculum. And so, having a more open mind, being able to teach necessarily away from the book, the textbook, because children think they know everything. So.
Yeah. Okay, thank you.
Sure.
So we know there are some constraints, right? We're in a standards-based system. There are some constraints. However, what we're hearing is within those constraints, right, being able to do some of the things that we're talking about here. And we'll talk about the constraints in a few minutes. Yes.
I just wanted to add, I agree with the whole facilitator, all of that. But with bringing technology into the classroom in whatever form, I think our teachers need to help our students learn some technology etiquette. When is it appropriate to use your phone? When is it not appropriate to use your phone? Can you go up to the drive-thru at a fast food place and have your phone stuck to your ear? How to use our technology. Our teachers need to help them with that.
That relates back also to what was shared up here earlier about a filter, knowing how to filter those things. Fantastic. One conversation?
Can see you.
I also think they have to like children. I think they have to be compassionate, and they have to be as progressive as we're expecting our children to be. And at the same time as they're teaching, and of course they're the expert, and they deserve the respect, they need to give it back to the child, who may not be grasping what they're getting, not because they're a bad child, because the teacher's not communicating it. And they can shut down a child's learning really fast with, oh, that's not it, and a walk off.
Sure. So that communication skills, again, hearing, modeling, those same kind of things. The good news about that, when you read things like Dan Pink's book or Howard Gardner's book about the Minds for the Future, they're not just talking about school, they're talking about everybody. So really, it's all these things that y'all are talking about, the things that we need to survive and thrive in the current environment is true for all of us, adults and students. It's just sometimes harder for adults because we aren't the digital natives and we don't have those same experiences. Yes.
I heard a lot of good suggestions, and I think one of the common themes is we want to be more individualized with our kids, what fits them. So the teacher needs to be able to individualize the curriculum, its presentation, how they regurgitate it back to the individual students or the small groups in their class. But to do that, I think the role of the teacher, our role is going to be to change some of the federal and state regulations and laws to give them the freedom to move in the classroom, because right now they don't have it. I mean, they're locked down with all kinds of stuff. And when you go to them and say, can you try that? Well, I can't. I got to teach the STAR thing this week or whatever. So there's got to be some changes from us on a broader level to free up our teachers to do what they want locally.
Us, meaning community members.
The community. Yeah.
was going to add to the facilitation that we seem to assume that kids know how to work in small groups and know how to facilitate that, and so the teacher as a role also needs maybe a skill set to teach them, because it is definitely a skill to learn to get everybody to participate, communicate, and maybe model that as a classroom as a whole, and once you get that established, move into the other steps of it's not automatically to a small group, and then I can go grade papers while they're all working together. That we have to model and teach that. So the teachers need that skill set brought to them as well.
Fantastic. Yeah, somebody was saying it's not about being a guide on the side, meaning being on the sidelines, right? It's still being an active role in facilitating all of that and what goes with that. Right. Yes, in the back.
Two things to point out to what the woman said over there in regards to technology. I think everyone in this room, we're all examples on how to use that, and we can all look at ourselves when we don't use it appropriately. So we're models as well as our teachers in how that's done. So I think there needs to be a whole class on that for everyone in this community, how to do that. For two, as far as what teachers... and I did, while I was sitting here listening, I looked up something too. But while looking at teachers, the knowledge, we live in a time when the knowledge is out there. I mean, we can go find it. Anyone can go find it. So how do we teach our kids to be motivated and go do that? And teachers are role models. They're going to show us how to do things ethically in the classroom, how to act as a person, how to communicate. And, that's just not so easy to find. Knowledge is easy to find. Those attributes aren't easy to find. So that's what we need in our classroom.
Fantastic. Thank you. Very good. Here, do you have a mic? Yeah. They need mics. Go ahead.
I really like everything that's being said here. Again, as a retired principal, one of the things I found that was most helpful to pull and keep everything glued together between the school, the parent, and the teacher is communication between when you say the teacher, you need to also say the parent, so that they're not working in opposition. They're not working in opposition to each other.
Right.
If I have one doctor for my foot, I don't want that same doctor working on my heart. So, but they need to collaborate if I'm going to have surgery, because they need to know what does that make sense? Yeah, when you say, I just get concerned. No, I just really get concerned when I hear the teacher. At my school, it was the teacher and the parent, because you had your child 5 years before I got them in kindergarten.
I think this group today is a testament to that, too. Obviously, there are people here today that are saying that exact same thing from the parent point of view. We want to be partners with you in the process. Absolutely. Yes, ma'am.
I think learning is best when the student learns because the student wants to and believes that he or she can. And I don't think this can be automated, and that's why the teacher's role is still the most important job in the community. And the most another important thing is, if the teacher can communicate that they are interested and they believe in the student, I think a lot can be achieved.
Fantastic. Thank you. Back there, and then we'll come
to
go
first. Are you sure? Okay. I think there is some wisdom, though, to taking our most gifted communicators and making that accessible through technology. And then the role of the teacher becomes more of a facilitator who helps. So it's like flipped, where the classroom becomes their lab work, where the teacher is actually helping them put the knowledge into practice. But not every teacher, and we've all been victim of this, is a gifted communicator. And we need those gifted communicators to hook our kids' attention. And it can be interactive.
Fantastic. So using tools to create and do those things, using the strengths of people to do the things that they're great at, and then using the technology tools to share that out, she's saying. So my daughter was telling me the other day, she was like, why can't we do the things at home that are easier done on our own, and the things at school that we can only really do at school because we have the teacher there and we have this other students there. So what you're saying, and you all know, I'm sure, that you're seeing, like MIT has all of their lectures now on podcasts. So it's available to anybody. Actually, we could even use them here. So, yeah, same kind of thing. Fantastic. Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
I don't know if I can say this exactly right, but I'd really like to be able to see teachers somehow work with each other. So, for example, if there's a language arts teacher and a physics teacher, they may be able to have some crossover between each other. And I don't know how that would work in a classroom type setting, but I did notice when I went and visited a school in Denmark,
that the students actually traveled from class to different teachers, and I don't know that that makes a difference, but sometimes there would be 2 teachers with one class. And
so getting back to what the gentleman was saying earlier, too, about kind of crossing those boundaries with curriculum. Fantastic. Okay, we are going to, oh, yes, I'm sorry.
I just have one comment really quickly. I think we ask so much of our teachers. Our poor teachers are being asked to do a lot, and in this room we're asking that that we raise the bar even further on our teachers. And I substituted for just a little while, and my hat is off to those of you who are teachers, because when I was trying to administrate the curriculum, I was also being spat upon by little Johnny in the corner and having to pay attention to, some of the people who wouldn't pick up their pencils and things. And I think that we don't utilize one of our best and greatest resources in this time of financial crisis, and that is volunteers. A lot of us are stay-at-home moms. We have multiple degrees. And when we go into the schools, we're being asked to give everything but a stool sample in order to volunteer. And then when we are there, when we're not being treated like a criminal, the jobs that they give us to do are to make copies or to open juice boxes at the lunch table. So what I would like to see is more parent involvement in an education process.
Y'all are going to have to ramp up your security if you don't have to do that. So, okay, one conversation real quick. So thank you so much for all your contributions. And let me say that I know this time when we're talking about the role of the teacher sometimes can feel like, well, you need to be doing this differently. And that's not the intent at all. We have to discuss the role of the teacher. I know most of the teachers in this room are agreeing they want that role. So we're going to get to the next step, which is what do we need to do as a system to change the way the system is now that constrains a lot of the way that teachers have to operate and students have to operate. So there's layers to all of this, so I appreciate that. It's great to hear, by the way, just all the conversation, including what we just heard about how you all want to work together. So we have 2 things left to do. Our time is flying by. It's so great to hear all the conversation. One thing is we asked students, we got a student panel together, and we asked students the same questions that we've been asking you. And so we want to share with you some clips from that. You can see the whole thing online as well. But we want to share, and by the way, those videos are going to be available on Friday following this group of summits. So on Friday, those things will be posted. So if you go today, you won't find that stuff. But on Friday, you'll have access to all that. So we want to show the student video, and I want to just preface it by saying this was kind of talk show format. So we had a facilitator that was asking the students the same questions. But we edited that piece out so we could shorten it. So what you're going to hear is just really their answers. So they're going to be answering the questions of what are your hopes for your own future is the first one, and we'll hear a few of those. Then how does learning need to be transformed to make that happen? So what kinds of things should you be doing in school? How can teachers help you with this? What are some of the things that teachers can be doing to help you with this? And the last one, which we're going to address after this, is how does the system need to change to make all this happen, to make sure that we can do all these kind of things? So we're going to roll the video, and then we'll talk about
I hope to become a neonatal nurse, and I'm going to attend Texas Tech, as well as build up to become a nurse practitioner.
I want to be a pediatrician. I love kids, and I just want to help them in as many ways as I can.
I plan on going to college, and then I have no clue what I'm doing after that.
I want to be an engineer, or at least something in the math and science fields.
I want to do, and I'm just kind of looking for some direction. And I'm interested in math and science, but I'm really I'm just kind of in the basics of those, and I'm just kind of going to college and just kind of seeing where that takes me.
I think that teaching needs to be more hands-on with the students. And as technology is more incorporated, we need to have hands-on learning, practical applications for stuff we learn, because in math and science especially, it's really challenging for me because I'm an English person, but when we can apply math and science to things in daily life and how things actually work in the world, it really connects it and it makes it stick better in my brain. So I think teachers need to use more technology and practical applications to really connect the students to what they're learning and help them utilize information.
I think the new bring your own technology thing is a step in the right direction, because if you're a doctor and you don't know what a word is, you're going to be let me find my textbook. You're just going to get your phone out and search the word. So as far as in real life, it's not put your phone away, put your laptop away. You can use all your resources. So being able to use our resources helps us to learn better and learn on our own which helps me best. I think the teachers need to be more updated on technology, because though they may know math and science and whatever better than us, we can work an iPhone and iPad better than they will ever know how. So if they were more up to date with their technology and knowing how we could use ours, we would be able to use it better, and they would be able to teach us with it so we could utilize it to its full potential.
And if we could put like textbooks onto the iPad and maybe put a barcode on it, and they could check one out and take it home and have the textbook app on it, like have textbooks on it, it'd be a faster way to learn, and we wouldn't have to worry about like the 4 books that we have to bring home and then turn back in later in the year. So that would be a better way to organize stuff and get it more into the future.
I mean, like school web, there has been times when that web page cannot be shown.
I'm a visual learner, personally. I like when teachers give us like graphic organizers and things that I can, have a picture associated with a bunch of words, not necessarily just reading text out of a textbook. I think it's very important to engage your students in everyday instruction, because, you don't just want them to be sitting in the desk and be handed 6 worksheets that have to be completed, and then that's your class time. The teacher should be, actually teaching, like, up in the front and, doing activities, group activities, stuff to remember the information, more than just, here's your worksheets. It's going to be like this every day and very routine. We need, like, a little bit of different stuff to do. You don't want to go into a classroom and just be like, like a scary noise comes up, like dun dun dun, like you're going into a classroom. But I think it should be comfortable, and group tables, like for discussions and stuff, should be available instead of so much individual learning, because, like I said before, you can learn a lot better in groups.
Like engaging the students in a class discussion or something, because class discussions really help me, as well as visual and audio and group work and lab work and science and stuff. I think it's important for teachers to help build a mutual respect between the students and the teacher, as well as just amongst the students in general. It's just kind of, all right, I can do the math here, but like, what is this? And I got an AP test in May, so I'm really trying to understand what's going on before we move on to the next thing. So being able to work in an actual lab with the materials that we're learning about, hands-on with my peers, and just being able to comfortably talk about it with the teacher and other students really helps me. That goes along with the hands-on thing. It's just kind of being able to really see it. I think if, more outside world hands-on activity.
I think as far as the school district being run better for our education, it's a whole generation gap thing again, because they grew up different than we did, so they learned different. Like, they didn't have video games and all that stuff, and the higher-ups are normally older, and they grew up in a different time, and they weren't exposed as much. And with TV and everything bad and different now, we just learn different. And I think they really need to study and figure that out, that we're not just like them. We didn't go out and play when we were bored when we were little. We played video games, so it's a generation thing.
I think that if something gets removed, there should always be something to replace it, and reasoning as to why it benefits us in a better way.
I think so, because we're doing all of these, information sessions and all of these things to try to change the future. I think definitely in 10 years, it's going to be, maybe almost the total opposite. And we're going to hope that we were in that environment rather than how we are now, I guess.
Maybe, in 10 years, we probably won't even have textbooks anymore. And it'll all be technology-based, and hopefully maybe every classroom in every school could have a computer access for every student to use, and projectors for teachers to show visuals, like Morgan was saying.
I agree. I think LISD has great potential and has amazing opportunities ahead of us, if the students know more about the schools and the opportunities we have, we can do such great things. If we could all know about this, we could all change our learning, and we could all just enhance our high school and our middle school so much better because we can learn such more diverse things now.
We clap for the students. So you get to hear the student voice, and just a quick reaction with your neighbor there, just if you'll share with each other what things, your reaction to what you heard. Can I get your attention back, please?
Becky, do you need peppermint or something?
It's good to hear from the students, right?
Huh?
I thought it was so interesting hearing your comments earlier, knowing what was on there, how much it paralleled what you all were saying. They're insightful, so it's great. I would love to hear all of your reaction to that, but I think we're going to move on because I want to honor your time, and we said 1:30. I know we started a little bit late, but we're still going to try to make it at that time. So you heard some from the students, and I know you've already started to think about this a little bit, but I love one of the things that Ken Robinson says, what she says, we should strip education down to its essence. Like, what does it really take for someone to learn? Somebody said earlier about their learning experiences as a young child and how they're learning. One of the most important things and most complex things I think we learn is how to speak a language, right? And we do that, how? By doing it. It's like an immersive experience, right? So he says just strip it back down, right? Because there's a lot of people that say that really part of our problem is all the reforms, right? We just keep adding stuff to it and not thinking about what to take away. So he says, once we've answered the question, what is it? What's really necessary right now for students to learn? Then we shouldn't add anything to it. You heard the students say that. Don't add anything to it unless it benefits, unless you can prove what the benefit is. So let's talk about that. Just how do we need to transform the current system of education? What do we need to take away? And I want to give you a caveat here because I know what a lot of your answers are going to be. What I want us to do right now is let's talk about the things we can control. Okay? Let's talk about the things we can control. Because there are a lot more things within our control sometimes, I think, than we realize. So I know there are constraints, and I know there are a lot of things we'd like to change that we may not be able to have control over, or maybe it's a longer-term process, right? There are people working at those levels, and we'll even talk a little bit about that. And like the gentleman said, I think it's great for you to work at those levels as a community, to come together and say, you know what, we want to address that. But for now, my caveat for this conversation is just these are things within our current control. What can we control right now in LISD that we feel like we need to transform the current system? Y'all mentioned, you've already talked a little about some things earlier. What do we need to take away, and how would we need to transform? And we'll take another 2 minutes in your small group to come up with that list, and then we'll share out in the whole group from this question too.
One day at lunch or the one day at lunch?
was like, I can do that really easy.
Can I get your attention again? This piece, by the way, really is the focus of this entire process, right? It's going to be our focus for all the groups and everything that we're going to do following this one. But we're going to start the dialogue here. So let's hear a few things that you talked about in your small group, same process. Stand up if you'd like to speak and share what you talked about. There's somebody there. There's somebody there. You want to start? Thanks.
We really liked what the parents said about the parent volunteers because you don't want to make copies, and we totally understand that. And there's no reason you can't help in a science room. But we thought, we understand as teachers that they need to be trained so that they don't do the wrong thing. But if we have a sub-train, just like our substitute teachers are trained, if we could have a class for parents to train, that would work.
Okay, so like volunteer training. Okay, great. Thanks. Up there?
To follow through with the volunteer, since it's not what I stood up for, but I am the volunteer chair of the PTA, and I took the initiative to make a needs assessment sheet for the teachers and a skills assessment sheet for the families so that we could maybe mix and match, and to take the initiative to assign people to mentoring. And I also put on my chair people the responsibility to show up when they say they're going to be working at the school to do their projects, and B, do give them meaningful things and not just workroom. But don't ever think that workroom work isn't going to help your teacher, because that gives them the opportunity to have what my next statement is about, the time of the day to do the job. My big issue is take away the busy tasks. If you have a child who can't read, they won't be able to learn social studies. They won't be able to do the math. They won't be able to do the science. They won't be able to do the geography. None of them. And to identify it, when we were a couple of them back, what does the teacher need? What can we do to take it back a little farther? We were looking at, in this multitasking, high technology environment, quality control is the topic. The quality of the child's education as an individual, it will answer all of the IDEA issues, all the other issues. If every single child is evaluated, not so much as a full scope special ed evaluation, but what is it about little Johnny that he's not getting in this thing? We have like a topic to learn. What is that little bit that needs to be taught to that one child? And if you can figure that out, that child will not be inhibited any longer. And I think that's the most important part.
Okay, so individualizing assessment to be able to see where those gaps are, which goes along with the individualizing instruction, connecting to that. Okay, fantastic. Yes?
Well, we've had great discussion about change, the way we see things happening right now, but I think we've got a great opportunity right now to make sure that we respond to the change we see today, but be able and more lightweight and lean to be able to respond to the changes that are going to be coming up that we can't even anticipate.
Good.
Teaching has changed so much in the 13 years that I've been involved that I could have never imagined. So we have to just be able to change now and be able to change again so much more quickly than we've been able to respond, I think, at this point.
That's great.
We're so entrenched that change is hard right now, and we have to make ourselves more able to quickly respond.
That's great. That's a great thought. So not decide, okay, this is the way it's going to be, but maybe even the process for how you say, like there's a term that people like to use right now in these times, agile. Like, how can you create agility so that you can continue, like she's saying, to respond more agilely? Because right now people say education is not like turning a sailboat, right? It's like a big, huge ocean liner. By the time you get this part around, where's the back end, and you got all this going on. So we're lucky that we have a system that's become so entrenched. People are really trying to model, like, wow, how did they mass produce that system like it is? Like, there's a lot of great advantages to what's happened. So now how can we take that, like she's saying, and stay agile with it in the future? That's good.
Hi, as a teacher, we see a lot of in our classrooms, and I'm at the high school level, where we have a lot of redundant work that we're making our kids do, things that they've been taught already, or we assume have been taught already, so having to go back and reteach. Okay. So a lot of our time spent is spent on reteaching, where if it was better vertically aligned and cross-curricularly aligned between subjects, that would give teachers more time in the classroom and freedom, because we don't have the luxury of telling TEA, no, we're not going to teach that TEK, we're not going to teach that because we don't have time. Better alignment would really help.
Fantastic. So aligning so that you can get at, like what she was saying, the specific gaps that student needs. That's great. Yes?
Real quick, I just want to say the way inspiration works, I know some of you are going to get in the parking lot when this is done and just have the most incredible idea. And so hopefully you'll continue to tweet and kind of put all this stuff out there, kind of keep it out online, and we can continue this conversation after the fact. But I wanted to say, get rid of unrealistic expectations, both for the students that, you tell them, get good grades, go to college, and you'll get this perfect job, which just isn't the case anymore. And then also unrealistic expectations for us. I mean, some of us are getting excited about what we hear and kind of giving us some expectations about how quickly we can implement some of this stuff. I mean, are we having this discussion for future generations that our kids are never going to get to experience it, or is this something that we're talking about for us? Can we be selfish that way? So that's kind of my thought.
So maybe the answer to that is yes, right? Is yes. So because there could be some things that could happen now, and there could be some things that are longer term. So I like that. But it's a continued conversation similar to what this group is saying back here. Continuing, evolving that over time. Yes.
I feel really lucky. My second grader got into LEAP last year, and in the class they were doing a lot of group projects and things. He came up with a worksheet, but it was a very thought-provoking worksheet that I was like, wow, how did you figure that out? And they worked as a group and collaborated on it, and I would love to see more of that kind of teaching across the board. That doesn't just have to be for my child who got into LEAP. All kids deserve it.
That's right. Yes.
I think I agree with that LEAP. Both of my elementary school kids go to the LEAP, and other than LEAP, whatever worksheets they bring home, they have the answer is only one. I think that is something we can try to take away, because that definitely doesn't promote divergent thinking, which is very much needed in future probably. That's what I think. And another thing is on the worksheets. All I see is -2, -0, -1. Why can't we grade in positives? After 4 years, I have seen my kids on the worksheets. I think teachers can definitely do this, that always grade in positives. I believe in positive psychology a lot, and I think it makes a big difference for the student that if the maximum they can get is -0, I don't think that's inspiring or motivating them.
The best you can get. So, but if you do the first thing you said, if you take away the worksheets, you don't have to worry about the second one, right? So, I do have a client that's one of their decisions that they made as a different campus and said, worksheetless campus, no more.
My comment kind of piggybacks on what she said, but that I do think that really all we can control at this point is what happens in our classrooms. I mean,
you individually, right?
Well, as a district, we can't say we're not going to do the STAR testing.
Oh, sure. Right.
We're going to go to school only Monday through Thursday. I mean, So when we look at that, I think really as parents, we're very fortunate because LISD really has already done some of these things in terms of we're looking for more application-based learning. And so, as parents, that's what we want for our kids. We want them to be able to think critically and to, not do the project or not do the worksheets, but to apply. And I think that we already get that. I think the expectation we have then for our administrators is that ensuring that that's in all of our campuses, in all of our classrooms, because I can say that I've seen that at work in my kids' schools, and I've seen, where some classes do a great job of it, and maybe some don't do as well.
Mm-hmm.
So I think then, excuse me, the what's the word I'm looking for? Really, like I said, it's top down. So our administrators have to say, we want to see this application based learning, and so that means we're going to have to do training so our teachers know what that looks like and how that looks. But we're going to require it. And so our principals are going to have to make sure that that's happening in all of our classes. So I really think that's all we can control at this point.
That's great. And I like that, because that's one of the things, analogy I use sometimes is, sometimes we feel like a lot of things are out of our control. But like she's mentioning, you walk down your halls today, and you'll see classrooms that are like you've been describing today. You'll see them. And they have the same constraints as other classrooms that aren't like that. So that's where there's things that we can control that will actually meet a lot of expectations that you have here. We can take two more. Yes.
I guess I have a question for you. I'm very impressed that you're putting this out to the community. But I guess the question for you, as well as the school district, that I feel could help also answer your question here is, technology is globalization. I mean, we talk about how it affects our economy and all of that. But I think my question would be, are you opening yourselves up to other states, their experiences? Are you opening yourself up to other colleges? I mean, that's part of globalization and exposure, collaboration, because that's what makes this country so strong, is collaboration of states. How about other countries? There's so many opportunities, and as a parent, I'd like to know that it's not just about the community, because we have skills, yes, to share, but are there other opportunities that we haven't perhaps looked at? And I just wonder what your answer is.
Sure. Great question. Dr. Waddell mentioned earlier a little at the beginning when he was there, just personally for me, if you're asking me that question, one of the benefits of using an outside facilitator, which they've chosen to do, is that I do have those experiences. I've worked in the UK, I worked in setting up the education system in Iraq, as well as all across our nation, and I've had the great fortune and privilege to be in schools all over the nation that are doing a lot of the things that you're saying. So you're not alone in your hopes and what you're wanting for students, and you're not alone in your desire to make that happen. And so there are connections that we can make. And through the rest of the process, and when we get to, obviously this group is a large group and it's designed for input and dialogue. But as we get to smaller groups that are going to be working, and remember you're going to be getting phone calls if you were interested, we can utilize those resources and that research and what's out there to connect. So absolutely, university level business community, I have the opportunity just as a facilitator to help you make those connections. But also y'all need to understand my role is to facilitate the process. So the answers to what's right for you here need to come from you, even utilizing research and those other resources that are available, absolutely, not just inventing it all on your own necessarily. But then those answers, I can provide resources, and that's part of my role, and then facilitating a process to help you get to agreement about what you want for your school district and your students here. Let's take this one, and we're going to wrap up.
Our principal here had a great idea. He said the structure of the classroom can be changed right now. Each teacher can move around their tables and move from desks to a more center-based activities if they want. But on that broader perspective and in the short term, obviously we have a $54 million shortfall to cover, right? So it's going to be tough on our teachers to do that if there's 30 kids in the class instead of where it belongs. A tax increase failed the last time it was voted on. I, along with a lot of our parents, feel it was marketed poorly. We look around at stadiums and field houses and AstroTurf being installed, and we see that and we say, we don't want to fund that. Come to us again soon and tell us you need the money to keep the teachers in the classroom, board members that are here, and you're going to get the vote for it. We'll work at getting that out, because I want our teachers to have what they need. Thank you.
Fantastic, and that's why you have to have community working together, knowing that your money is going towards the things that you're hoping for students and supporting that. There's one last question that I want you to think about, because we don't have time in the time that we said we'd have you here to discuss it, but it's a really important question. Some of you have alluded to it already in talking about tax and STAR, but the question for you as a community, and you have to make this decision also as a community. Right now there's some current measures of school effectiveness that are highly publicized. And those are around the state testing system, obviously. And then college entrance exams and some of those kind of things as well, AP test scores, standardized tests primarily, right? I mean, if I asked you, how do you know if your school's effective? Is that mostly the information that you're getting? Am I right in making that assumption? So my question to you, and my question for you to dig into a little bit, and we need to make some decisions at the end of the process is, we can't throw all that out the window. You're right. We're under those constraints. But we could figure out some other ways also to show the way schools are effective, because what most of you have said that you hope for students isn't necessarily going to be shown by some of those measures of effectiveness. So as a community, actually when I was in Gabel, we had a conversation with our community about, do you care about that? Or can we have the freedom to look at some other measures and show you school effectiveness in a variety of ways versus just that one thing? Can we take some of that constraint off so that we can do some of the things you're telling us you want us to do? So it's just a question I pose to you. Come back to another one if you want to have a discussion about it. We're going to maybe hopefully have some time to do that. Or another way to have some input on this is to go online. We're going to have the survey online. Again, it'll be posted on Friday. And this will be one of the questions that we're going to want some input back on. So it'll give you some time to mull that over. I want to wrap up real quick by just telling you, you have a great opportunity. Somebody mentioned it. We have a great opportunity. We've been talking about the changing context. Really, if Rip Van Winkle woke up today, the only place he would recognize a school, it's true, because that's the main thing that hasn't changed so much in the last 100 years. But we have a great opportunity. We have an opportunity to reconceive of that now. And I know there are financial and other constraints, but like we've talked about, a lot of the things we're discussing right now, I haven't heard anything today that makes me think you couldn't do what you're wanting to do for your school. So we have this great opportunity. There's actually a group that's been working on one to tell you if you don't know about at the state level. A group of superintendents from districts all over the place. Actually, Dr. Waddell's been a part of this, where they've been talking about the same kind of thing for the past several years and have come up with a document. You can get to it at www.tassinet.org, which is the Texas Association of School Administrators group. And they've been talking about what should this vision look like? What should education look like? And they kind of wrote basically a declaration of independence from the current system is really what they kind of came up with. And these are the 6 articles that they address in that document. So I think that'll be something interesting for you to look at. It's some background information that we can use, and it's actually another resource relating to what we heard from the lady here about what other resources are out there. They've done a lot of research and brought in speakers and talked and thought, and so there's a lot of thought that's gone into that. That's a good backdrop. And just along those same lines, I want you to know that group and others joining with them have lobbied at the state level for the past couple of years, and actually were able to get hope against hope, right? Dr. Waddell, I didn't think it was really ever going to happen, but it did happen. They were able to get a Senate bill passed, 1557, that actually allows a group of districts out of the state accountability system, a consortium of 20 school districts, to try to come up with their own way of showing school effectiveness and holding themselves accountable in a different way. And so that's in process right now. This group has been working at the state level to make that happen. It's happened. Those people have listened and are agreeing and working together now, and they're saying, how can we, and TEA has been a part of it, so how can we look at a different kind of system for state accountability? And that's in process right now, so you're sure to learn more about that. If you want to know more about it, you can look that up. But that's in process this year, is looking at who's going to be a part of that group that's going to get to opt out, and what is that system going to look like that they're going to be able to use to hold themselves accountable, and then how can we learn from that as a state? So I think that's going to be really exciting. So this process that we're going through is not in a vacuum. We are looking at how we can build on things, like you mentioned, other resources and things that are out there. But it is student-focused the whole way, community-based. As you see, we need everyone's input. If you're not a part of it, it doesn't happen. So we need you to be involved, and this turnout is an indicator that you will be. We're trying to think forward, like we talked about, even though we can't predict. Karen is going to be working, and she'll share with you just here in a minute all the ways that this is available, this communication is going to be available to you as much as you want, maybe more than you want, you'll have access to. And the last word up there is actionable. This is not a process about let's dream, right? And then go away and keep doing the same thing that we've been doing and then go, why did we put that on a plaque on the wall, right? Why did we put those words up there? Really, it's actionable. There's a very strategic design for what's going to happen following the dream, and then how that's going to be measured, and then what are the specific actions that are going to be taken to make it happen and it's put on a timeline. So by January, we're hoping to be pretty far into that process. That's our kind of our timeline for how that's going to work. And there's ways for you to get involved. This first part is really a gathering input piece. Karen will share more about that, but the summits are part of that, the focus groups that we're going to have, the survey that's online, then that's going to move into the kind of funnel into the strategic design team that'll work together, and then into the project teams that'll come up with the specific actions related to those goals. So then by January, then we're hoping to have that new vision in place. And so we appreciate you giving us a great start on that today. And I think Karen's going to share a little bit more about how you can give your input in those different venues that you have available to you.
Well, first, thank you all for coming. I was holding with bated breath to see how many people would come, at least to our first summit, since there's 6. Secondly, we want to keep the conversation going. On Friday, as Shane has alluded to, we were going to post all of our summits online, along with the survey. So the same questions that you have been asked today will be asked to the entire community, and so the community can see what kinds of things you've been sharing with us and all the other attendees at the other 5 summits. We really want to keep the dialogue going with your friends and neighbors, because this is truly an LISD community initiative. So I encourage you to do 2 things. One, today, when you leave here, go home, log on and get with a friend or neighbor and share with them one thing that you did not know this morning when you're brushing your teeth. So please forward that on about something that you learned here that you felt was important, because we still have 5 more to go. But we want to keep the conversation going even if you physically couldn't be here. The second thing is, if between now and then you have ideas, please send an email, info@lisd.net or permettk@lisd.net. I will keep every single one of your thoughts that you send to me, and I will make sure the facilitators have that. So the opportunity for you as you go back, sometimes as one of our gentlemen said, you get in the parking lot and think, oh gosh, I want to keep that opportunity available to you. On Friday, when you go on and you see all the summits, that site will constantly be ongoing. So as we move forward through every single one of the processes, all the documents will be there. So whatever we share with our strategic design team, whatever we share with our action teams, everything will be transparent to you. So even if you're not serving in one of those capacities due to time, you will still be able to catch up as things are unfolding. And that is a commitment that the communication and Dr. Waddell I have to you. So with that said, thank you so much. Shannon, do you have anything else?
Thank you so much. I do want to say, because I mentioned earlier, that not every superintendent is willing and board are willing to bring people in like this stuff off. If you don't mind applauding them. Thank you for caring about our kids in our school.
Excuse me.
Big